If you were still doing the Sunday show and you had Quinn and Rauner on this Sunday, what would you be asking them?
Well, I'm with you, which is that ultimately, see, I think there's something important to think about, in my view, in my humble opinion, about the work that you do that's really important, because the watchdog aspect of it is to sometimes say to government, you know, government often gets vilified, and the people who run government, because they can be crooks, they can be, you know, out of touch with the people they serve, they can be rewarding the insiders and be guilty of cronyism. Sometimes they're just inept. And sometimes, and if you run a big corporation, you know this, you run a big organization, you know this, sometimes the organization just gets away from you. And government too often, I think, gets away from leaders in government. And I mean, you look at the Secret Service business that's going on, and Secret Service does a great job. Now, organizationally, have it been compromised by the move to Homeland Security? Yeah, but you had some real bad lapses here that in a Washington environment creates, you know, government can't be trusted at all. And so I would want to focus on what government can actually do well and what it's doing to shore up what it does less well. And the fact that, see, what I like about what you said and what I think you stand for, which is that politicians ought to answer tough questions. And one of the struggles that I face at Meet the Press is that fewer and fewer politicians want to expose themselves to that kind of interview because of the risk of looking bad. But if you run for office, you ought to be willing to take the heat. And you got to be able to, you should be, you know, you should be shown respect. You should be able to have your views, you know, articulated and not be railroaded. But you got to be able to answer these tough questions about why government is not working, where it's not working, and be really proactive about what you're going to do about it. You know, there's too many of these problems, whether it's pension reform in the city or the state here, or it's entitlements on a national level. It's not like nobody knows what to do. I mean, the answers are clear. It's having the political courage to just do it and to say to the voters, look, this is going to be tough. You're going to be angry about it, but we are where we are. Now, what are we going to do about it? And that's what I think too few of these people do.
You know, the polling this governor's race has been peculiar. The Republican Bruce Rauner held a 5 to 10 point lead for quite a long time, and then either through Quinn advertising or people paying closer attention or a few controversies arising, that shifted in a heartbeat. Actually shifted in ways I hadn't seen very often when I was a political reporter. No obvious precipitants. And then all of a sudden you've got Quinn with a little bit of a lead or a significant lead, now tightening up. Impossible to say, but do you have a sense of outcome in this one?
You know, I think it's ultimately going to be turnout, how much the Democrats can turn out. You know, the Democrats I talk to are worried, but still think that, that Quinn has an edge, but they say don't mortgage the future on it. I mean, I think that Rauner had a hard time in August, right? That he wasn't as visible in August. I mean, that's just kind of in the political grind in terms of management of his campaign. But he ought to be able to, you know, to close strong enough and catch a little bit of this national fever. You know, that where Illinois kind of tracks with some of these other national problems and get turnout up.
Let me ask you one last question and let you get back on the road to D.C. because I know you have a flight to catch. You covered Rahm Emanuel for a long time, and you had him on Meet the Press a number of times. You know him almost as well as those of us who had the good or bad fortune to grow up with him here in the city of Chicago. I say that facetiously. What is your sense of him? What is your sense of him overall? And the reason I say this is, if you look back over, I was covering him in 1989 when he was raising money for Rich Daley's first campaign, and I watched him go to the Clinton White House, and then help the Democrats take the House in '06, and then the Obama White House, and now the Chicago mayoralty. One position after another with really enormous problems and challenges, and major league solutions all along the way. Whether you liked them or not is a different issue. Whether you thought they were good ones, this guy got stuff done everywhere he went. So he was facing a tough re-election campaign, and until the head of the teachers union here suffered a very unfortunate medical setback that means that this race looks a lot less challenging than it did before. What should the people of Chicago know about the Rahm Emanuel you know?
You know, I think the things that's impressed me about the mayor, there is a pragmatism that I always saw, you know, as a reporter covering White Houses where he worked, where he had great skill dealing with reporters, but also dealing with politicians. Always a tough player, always tough-minded and tough-talking, and that hasn't changed. But there was a pragmatism about how to get things done. And so I actually think he represents some of the practical politics in government that is effective. He was actually opposed to healthcare reform, not philosophically, but he didn't like the idea of doing it as big as was ultimately done. And even though the president trumped him on that and said we're doing it anyway, there was a lot of damage done by passing healthcare reform on a party line vote, and there could be more damage done as it gets implemented over time. So I think Rahm represented that kind of pragmatism. I mean, the other thing I'd say, and I don't cover him day in and day out here in Chicago, but my dealings with him are, this is a guy who likes to be a politician. He really does. He enjoys it. He enjoys the rough and tumble of it. He enjoys the tough problems. He enjoys the problem solving. I think that's a good thing. I think people who like politics is actually a good thing because they know how to work within that system. So again, he strikes me as a pragmatic guy who likes government, thinks government can do good things, and seems to be well liked and well situated where he is.
Well, do you think he enjoys take exception to the likability issue in a very interesting recent
That he's
poll?
likable, or that he likes being a politician?
He wouldn't accuse himself of being likable.
No.
But there was a poll that actually was a very creative poll that suggested that he was about as unpopular as rush hour traffic on one of our expressways. He was almost as unpopular as the Green Bay Packers, and he was as unpopular as Fox News in the city of Chicago, which is a fairly blue city.
Well, I shouldn't misspeak. You know better than I do. I haven't seen his local ratings.
I'm talking about the overall network, not our local friends from Fox. With whom we work in partnership and do great stuff.
I didn't mean to. Yeah, right. To clarify that.
I just basically stepped on myself.
No. So I didn't mean to misspeak about. I didn't know all his personal approval ratings in Chicago. But my point is that he is a more pragmatic politician who enjoys the rough and tumble of it. And look, I mean, the reality for any incumbent and anybody who's in government, these are not easy days. The problems are big, the solutions are few, and government is not working as well as it could and should. So I just learned recently, forgive my ignorance, but I have young kids. My daughter's here is 9. I have a 12-year-old. So, you start to think about kids driving, at 16. I just learned about the Illinois law that you can only have, so what is this, when you're 16, right? You can only have one non-relative in the car. This is government at its best. I think that's a fabulous law. I mean, that's not a political statement. That just makes perfect sense. That's the concern I would have. How do I get that law passed in D.C.? So, anybody who's, so much of government does not seem practical and doesn't seem like it's working for people. But I had to praise that law. Whoever came up with that was
You haven't put your kids behind the wheel yet.
No, that's why.
But as somebody who did, I would probably support a law that makes them wait till they're 21.
Yes, sir.
Because they drive their parents crazy. David, we're going to let you get back to D.C. Will you come and see us and do something with us when you're on your book tour a year from now?
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to. Thank you.
So we'll bring you back. We can talk about the book. David Gregory, thanks so much.
Thank you.